Now, every Saturday on the show, we bring you our new racing segment at around this time. It's called My Racing Moment, brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Share every racing moment. Visit HRI.ie or follow Horse Racing Ireland on social media. On this week's episode, Jerry Gilroy and Johnny Ward were joined by newly retired jockey Jerry McGrath.
My Racing Moment on Off the Ball.
And they're off.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Share every racing moment. Visit HRI.ie.
How did you end up there in the first place? Because you've been there a long time now.
Yeah, I suppose I came over to England in between. So I did the leaving cert, but in between 5th and 6th year, I came over to England and I went to Brendan Powell Senior. He was training at the time. He's now assistant trainer in Joseph O'Brien's. But yeah, he was my first kind of boss, I suppose, as such. And he was a brilliant mentor. He really got me going. He gave me my first winner while I was still in school. I can remember riding my first winner, Newton Abbott, and I can remember literally I went home the next day to go into 6th year, and I did try to drag my feet a small bit and tried to miss my boat and thing home, but it got me home eventually anyway, and I did my leaving cert, and I even did an extra subject. I did agricultural science, and that wasn't hard work because I grew up on a dairy farm, but the worst thing about it is that when you're doing the exam for leaving cert ag science is one of the last ones, so
yeah.
It's nearly on the Saturday 2 weeks later or whatever, so it really just dragged it out. But so minute that the ag science was done, I think it was back on the boat again and back over to Lambourne, where I was at Brendan for a good kind of another 12-15 months, and then I moved. So Brendan got me in with one of the best agents around called Dave Roberts, and Dave rang me up one day saying that Nicky Henderson's looking for a conditional. Would I be interested? Well, he basically told me to go there right now. He said there's no two ways about it, just go, and I did, and I've been there ever since. Really, that was probably 12 years ago now.
Wow.
So it's been a long time, long association, and there's been plenty of ups and plenty of downs, but yeah, that's the joys of it.
We skipped over the bit there. You went to race, so you must have gone to race while you were still in school.
So I took transition year out, but the agreement was that I had to go back and do the leaving cert. And I was very lucky when I was in race. I was always a tall lad. I knew I was never going to be a flat jockey and stuff. So the lads in race were very kind, and they basically sat me down then and told me that, and I really listened. And in turn they sent me to Dermot Wells, not to be an apprentice, because he wasn't looking for an apprentice at the time. So they were keen to send a few bigger lads there to just learn their trade a bit. And I promise it was a brilliant grounding. Mr. Wells was incredible, and the staff he has there. And I'm actually still friends with some of the lads that are still working there now. And it was a great time in my life when I was young. And I was very naive, and I think it's very important to get steered in the right direction at that age, and not to kind of learn too many bad habits, and be pointed and guided in the right direction. And thankfully Mr. Weld and his team did that, and it really stood me in good stead.
Quite independent of spirit. So at 15 essentially you moved from your dairy farm in Cork to Kildare. I guess maybe you were going home at weekends and stuff, but you would have been living on your own really at 15. Yeah, exactly. And I suppose the other thing is I came from a horsey background, but I didn't come from a racing background, so I was literally learning. I know at that age you're still learning everything anyway, but I was really learning things from the bottom really enough. Like I knew my way around a horse, but when it came to racing it was all new to me. And yeah, like I said, I wouldn't change any of it. It's been an incredible few years, and like I'm probably quoted saying it a few times now, but I lived my dream for 12-13 years and I got paid to do it, and it's been incredible. So I've been very lucky. And was going to race a spur of the moment thing, or like how did you even know it existed? That was actually through Pony Club. So I can remember when I was in the Pony Club when I was younger, we went to went to Coolmore Stud, and we went to a few other places, and we went to race, went to the Curragh and things like that, and I didn't even know the place existed back then. And I'm sure I picked up a brochure or something like that, and I took it home, and I was always very keen about it, and I always loved the racing aspect of it. And yeah, I suppose I did it, and kind of just didn't think much would come of it. Believe it or not, my parents did make me fill out a CAO as well. I was going to say, so you're like, when you're 15, you're like, I'm just going to take the year off here and go off and become a jockey, and they're like, what? No way. But obviously they were like, fine, off you go. Yeah, and I can tell you that the amount of people that said to me, like, and even my career advisor or career, whatever they call them in school, like they said that I wasn't going to work, and there's no money in horses, and that I was too big to be a jockey. And but even plenty of friends and family were saying that there's no money in horses, and unless you're a vet or a farrier and things like that, But And they're probably right, they're dead right, but I still wouldn't change anything, that's for sure.
The words that Nicky said as well, just reading after your retirement, he's been a very special man to us. He's been in 7 Bars a long time. He's part of the place. We really want him to remain here. We feel desperately sorry for him. And I know he wanted to go on a bit longer. He wasn't ready to retire just yet. It broke his heart not to be able to continue because he's very good at it. He's a wonderful horseman and the nicest guy you'll ever come across. Such a team player. The owners loved him, and some would specifically ask for him to ride their horses. It must be really, really nice to hear something like that from a man and that is a legend of the game.
Yeah, I'd say they must have interviewed him late at night. I'd say that when they interviewed him about that, you know, he was obviously after a nice bit of dinner and, you know, a little a glass of red wine or something, because that's very no, very messy. No, he's incredible. No, we've always had a good relationship. You know, there's been a few cross words, but you know, plenty of better words as well. You know, but that's what makes any relationship stronger. You know, is that when, you know, he did give me a bollocking or whatever, you know, you turned in the next morning and you just got on with it, and that's what I loved about him. You know, I think that's a very good sign of a boss and a character when, you know, you can move on very quickly the next day.
We see your fellow Corkmen, we'll say Noel Feely and David Russell, riding to well beyond your retirement. But is it true that, like, given what happened on the all-weather that day, you gotta look at it as a glass half full, that you came out in one piece really, and be able to now go to Cheltenham and live a normal life?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Like I said, yeah, like I'd love to have gone on another 5. Not saying I wanted to go into my 40s, but I'd love to have got another 5 or 6 years out of it, for sure. You know, but prior to my fall, I was, you know, physically I was in a good way. I'd plenty of previous injuries and stuff like that, but nothing that was hindering me. And I was really enjoying the riding, enjoying the whole aspect of it. And I suppose, yeah, I went to Lingfield that day, and, you know, it was jumpers, bumpers on the all-weather. You thought, you know, let's go here. We don't have to jump. We don't have to leave the ground. You know, I had 4 or 5 rides, and, you know, I thought it was going to be kind of an easy payday. But, yeah, just lo and behold, it wasn't to be. And just unfortunately, the accident happened. But, yeah, like I said, it was a freak accident, and it could have been an awful lot worse. And I'm not a fella to dwell on things, but I suppose the amount of people that said to me that I was lucky to walk out of it, and well, not that I walked out of Lingfield, but to walk away 6 or 7 months later, relatively, you know, I have a little limp and small like that, but nothing major, that's for sure.
Did a horse fall on you? Is that what happened?
Yeah, so just, I'll never forget, because I didn't, so it was one of those, people said to me, oh, you must have been knocked out, you don't remember it, but I never lost consciousness, which, you know, some people say was a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know, because the fact that I didn't lose consciousness meant I didn't have a head injury, which was a positive, but the flip side of that then is that I remember everything, you know, from when it actually happened, to being put in the ambulance and stuff like that, you know. But yeah, so just the horse in front of us really just stopped quickly. We all came congested. My filly, she wasn't the biggest, and she's just clipped the horse's heel in front of her, and she's gone down. You know, you're gone from going 30 miles an hour, 30 plus miles an hour, and all of a sudden you're rolling around the ground. And then, yeah, horse landed on top of me then as well, and he probably just put the nail in the coffin with injuries wise, you know. So it was just very unfortunate. And yeah, not to be recommended, you know, that's for sure.
And all one side, a dislocated left hip and a dislocated left shoulder, and obviously some breaks as well.
Yeah, the hip came out the front. Oh no, the hip came out the back, and the shoulder came out the front. And obviously, as they dislocated, they fractured both joints as well. But to be fair, the hip has actually been okay. That hasn't been too bad. But the shoulder has just been problems from day one, really. It's the nerve damage that was done there was a lot worse than we kind of hoped or expected. And yeah, that's probably the main thing that's really held me back, and that from passing the doctor,
from getting back, because your intention was to continue on. It wasn't like you had the accident and then decided, right, that's me done. Your intention was to get back.
Yeah, geez, for sure. Yeah, like I was rehabbed every day for I don't know how many weeks and months, and I started back riding out in September, and everything was going well. And I thought, you know what, well, I'll be back now, hopefully for, you know, middle of October, whatever like that. You know, at the start of the national hunt season, and I was riding out about 3 or 4 weeks, I suppose, and then my bicep ruptured on my left arm, which is the shoulder that was damaged. They reckon it was probably damaged in the fall initially, and yeah, it literally collapsed. So that I lost an awful lot of strength with that, and a lot of movement and range in the shoulder. And that was probably, I did leave it settle down for 3 or 4 weeks again. And then I started back riding out again, and I hit a wall progress-wise. It just was making no progress. And so the surgeons, the doctors, they were all kind of, when I met them back in January, they were all kind of the opinion that they wouldn't be able to pass me to race ride again. So it was hard news to take, but I suppose in my own head, I knew before Christmas that I said earlier, I just hit that wall of progress, and I was in trouble.
I was going to ask, so when somebody says it to you, it's final, and if you don't know it's coming, it can be crushing and heartbreak, and I'm sure it's crushing and heartbreak anyway, but actually if you do know in your own head that you weren't going to be able to get back to the level you were at, does that somehow make it easier for you to make peace with that?
Yeah, I suppose, like I said, I thought I'd kind of, because I popped home to Ireland down to Cork for Christmas, and obviously I told my parents and stuff at that stage that what the surgeons had said, and I thought in my own head I was okay with it. And then last Monday when it kind of released that I'd when it came out and was official, when it's written in print in front of you, and when it really did hit home. I suppose you kind of lose your identity to a point. Like all my friends in school, or people I was friendly with in school, or even my nieces and nephews, they all know me as a jockey. And then when you're not, you're not that you're a different person, but you nearly get a new identity, which it took me a few days to get my head around it. And of course the phone then was very busy, and people were they were congratulating me on my retirement, and I didn't know if it was congratulations or I was just it was mentally, it was very draining the last kind of 10 days. But like I said, it was one of those things that if people weren't messaging and talking to you, it would have been probably worse.
My racing moment on Off the Ball.
And they're off. Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Share every racing moment. Visit HRI.ie.
And that was newly retired jockey Jerry McGrath speaking to Gilroy and Johnny Ward on this week's episode of our new weekly racing segment, My Racing Moment, brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Share every racing moment. Visit HRI.ie or follow Horse Racing Ireland on social media.